That night, Chin was looking for a famous restaurant in Aogden, discovering places he didn't even know existed. They didn't look bad at all, but he wondered if the boss would like that kind of place. Planning a date wasn't easy. Just then, someone knocked loudly on the door, interrupting him. He found it strange, since he wasn't expecting visitors at that hour. When he went to see who it was, Seolha said she had forgotten her cap there the day before. That worried Kim, since he had planned to give it to the boss but had forgotten. Still, he didn't think it was necessary for her to come all the way to his house. She could have just picked it up the next day. Then he noticed that Seolha had entered without asking and, even more curiously, was looking at his computer. As he approached, the girl seemed interested in something. Out of curiosity, he asked if she liked cats, but to her it wasn't a big deal. She had just been browsing through his subscription list, which struck him as odd. Kim didn't understand why she was checking that. Suddenly, Seolha held out her hand, as if expecting something. Not understanding her intent, Chin wondered if she was treating him like a cat or what that gesture meant. Even so, he placed his hand over hers. Seolha immediately pulled back and shouted, asking what he was doing. She just wanted her cap. Chin apologized right away. A little later, we see Seolha walking while thinking that, once again, she hadn't found anything. She had even left her cap on purpose, hoping to find something suspicious in his subscription list. But there was nothing unusual. Still, she found it odd that Kim was subscribed to a cat channel, unusual for a grown man. Seolha was overthinking the situation, because whenever she spoke to him, he didn't seem like a bad guy. Still, she shook off the thought. Anyone could change at any time, which is why she decided to keep watching him. But now she wondered what the name of that kitten channel was. When she got to her mom's house, something felt off, though she didn't know why. Her mom mentioned she had stopped by a friend's house earlier, then asked Seolha if she was going to shower. She nodded. At that moment, Seolha heard her mother's ringtone and offered to hand her the phone. Soy agreed, but Seolha was curious to know who was calling at that hour. Sooyeon was also surprised, especially when she saw Kim's name on the screen. Seolha wanted to know why he was calling her mom so late. Soon tried to say it was work-related, but before she could explain, Seolha answered the call herself. When Kim asked if the boss was nearby, Seolha firmly said no. Then she asked why he was calling her mom so late. Kim explained he just wanted to ask something about her part-time job. Seolha insisted that he should just tell her instead and she'd pass along the message. She also suggested he write down her number, saying that if he needed to contact her mom again, it would be better to talk to her first. Sheen started dictating his phone number, though Seolha couldn't help but tease him for taking so long to save it. Still, she told him to message her and promised she would check. She also asked him to send the name of the cat channel she had seen earlier. Chin asked if she liked cats, but she denied it, saying she just wanted to check if it was a decent channel, as it seemed suspicious for someone like him to be subscribed to something like that. Before Chin could insist on speaking with Soon, Seolha hung up. She then told her mom that she had already taken care of everything. However, Soon noted that lately Seolha seemed to be getting along better with Kim, even if she didn't fully understand why. Sooyeon remembered how, when she first met Kim, Seolha constantly asked when she would fire him, but now she noticed they talked quite a lot. She was happy that Seolha was starting to acknowledge him, as Kim was a good guy. But for Seolha, that wasn't exactly the case, though she no longer thought he was a complete idiot. At that moment, she received a message from Kim with the link to the cat video channel. She was surprised by how fast he had replied, considering he was just a store employee. At the very least, he had to be efficient at something. Meanwhile, Sooyeon continued wondering when her daughter and Kim had gotten so close. While Oyeon was showering, she couldn't stop thinking about how Seolha had always hated when guys asked for her number. Yet this time, she had given it first, and that surprised her. She had never seen her daughter talk that much with a boy, especially since they seemed to get along well. Still, she admitted that maybe Kim would prefer Seolha over her. But what was she even thinking? From the beginning, there had never been anything between her and Chin. Surely he was just a young man full of energy. She should be happy that Seolha and Kim were getting along. But then she remembered her daughter had mentioned visiting a friend's house. She had meant Kim. It wasn't something she cared about, or so she told herself. But she couldn't help wondering what they had done, or whether they were close enough to visit each other's homes. Most of all, she didn't understand why it still bothered her. The next day, we see Sooyeon talking to her friend Amin about masses. However, Soon asked her to lower her voice, saying everyone could hear them. Amin didn't care at all. She thought it was normal among adults, especially since those things commonly happened at night. In fact, she found it strange that they didn't happen more often. Still, Sooyeon wasn't entirely convinced. For Amin, it was obvious. Guys these days were just like that. That comment made Sooyeon wonder if Kim and Seolha had already had a consecration, which embarrassed her just thinking about it. Before she could go deeper into the thought, Amin received a message, which sparked Soyeon's curiosity. She asked if Amin was still seeing men, recalling how popular she had been in college. Amin understood what she meant and confirmed that her friends with benefits still contacted her, some of them even younger guys. She had always had a special charm, to the point where she laughed at men who didn't know how to conduct a proper mass. Still, Amin wanted to get back to the topic, as she thought it was a good thing. She always heard Sooyeon say, "What if she grows old without ever having a relationship, only to regret it later?" Sooyeon admitted it was partly true, but lied, saying they weren't talking about Seolha, just someone they knew. However, Amin, noticing her unease, stared at her and asked if she was still hiding something. From the outside, this didn't seem like a normal chat between a mother and daughter about relationships. Amin wanted to know what was really going on. Although Sooyeon tried to come up with an explanation, Amin kept watching her closely. Even so, Sooyeon insisted it wasn't what she thought and said she had to go because she needed to take care of her shop. She thanked Amin for listening and promised to call her later, though Amin kept wondering what kind of problem could be serious enough to hide from her. Elsewhere, Chin was organizing the store when he heard the door open. He greeted the customer, and when he looked up at the girl who had just walked in, she immediately asked if they had don chimi, her favorite dish. Kwea told her he would bring the dish right away, but he couldn't help wondering who she was. He hadn't seen her around the neighborhood before. After handing her the food, he said he would leave the plate there and asked if she needed anything else. In response, the young woman asked if he was a student working part-time, or if the owner wasn't around. Kim explained that she had just stepped out to the bathroom, which led the girl to ask how long he'd been working there. Though he didn't understand why she was asking so much, he replied that it had been a little over half a year, or at least that's what he thought. Then Amin, intrigued, wanted to know if he had a girlfriend. Chin, feeling nervous, didn't know what to say, which made her insist. Did he have lots of girls around him? Or was he the type who just liked casual fun, since she was the same way? He didn't quite understand where all of this was going, but the girl continued, saying that if he had worked there that long, he must already be close to the boss. Chin explained that they worked together every day, and Amin couldn't help commenting that the shop owner was stunning, so she assumed he had started working there with the goal of winning her over. Chin was completely stunned. Where had that idea come from? He had no idea who this person was to make such assumptions. Confused, he asked her what she meant, but she insisted that he shouldn't hide it. Just then, Sooyeon appeared and, noticing Amin's presence, asked what she was doing at the store. That made Chin wonder why no one had told him they knew each other. Soon took the opportunity to introduce her as a college friend, to which Chin responded with a brief greeting. However, the boss quickly asked what they had been talking about earlier. Without hesitation, Amin said she had been flirting with Kim because he was exactly her type, leaving Sooyeon speechless. Chin, completely confused, listened as Amin asked whether he didn't like older women, or if she seemed too old for him. Embarrassed, he denied it, but before he could explain further, Sooyeon stepped in, clearly upset, grabbing him by the arm and declaring that he belonged to her. Amin was left speechless. Sooyeon remained defensive, though deep down, Amin had suspected it. She apologized for not realizing it sooner, but Sooyeon, trying to regain control, claimed that he was just her employee and hoped Amin wouldn't interfere with her business. Still, Amin kept teasing her, saying she hadn't lost her charm and was still seeing younger guys behind her back. Sooyeon flatly denied it and asked her to leave, saying she was interfering with work. Amin, amused, joked that she was also a customer and didn't deserve to be treated that way. But Sooyeon didn't care, and demanded she leave, even if it meant not paying. Before leaving, Amin said she hoped to see Kim next time, but Sooyeon made it clear she didn't want her to come back. Once she was gone, the boss sighed and apologized to Kim for her friend's behavior, explaining that she wasn't a bad person, just too flirtatious. Kim commented that she had a lot of energy, but Sooyeon warned him that she couldn't allow people to speak to him like that. Though she clarified it wasn't her business, she said that if he started getting distracted from work because of dating, she wouldn't overlook it as his superior. Chin assured her there was no need to worry. After all, he belonged to the boss. Sooyeon, completely flustered, scolded him, saying she didn't mean it that way, but Chin kept insisting on interpreting it like that. The girl stared at him in shock. Now he was the one distracting the workplace. Kim admitted that being told something like that made him nervous, but Sooyeon preferred not to hear such things. Meanwhile, Amin, who was outside, listened to everything with great interest, as if watching the best live drama. Suddenly, Sooyeon asked Kim why he had called her that night, since he rarely took the initiative. Kim got nervous. It wasn't anything urgent, he just wanted to invite her on a date. When Seo answered the call, a chill ran down Soyeon's spine. Now all that mattered was Kim's question, if she'd be free over the weekend. Embarrassed, she didn't know what to say, but in the end, she agreed. Deep down, Sooyeon knew they shouldn't keep going like this. It was exactly what she had discussed with Amin. If her friend was right, maybe Chin and Seolha were seeing each other. As she thought about this, Chin handed her a drink, which she gratefully accepted. Noticing her downcast expression, he asked if something was wrong. Sooyeon said it was nothing important, though he felt like she didn't really want to be there and maybe he'd dragged her along. But she insisted she also wanted to go for coffee. That was a relief for Chin. He had wanted to go too, but didn't have anyone to go with. Meanwhile, Sooyeon, lost in her thoughts, was unsure what to do. She couldn't stop thinking about what had happened earlier, though she didn't know whether to ask directly. Maybe she was overthinking it. After all, if Chin really had something going on with Seolha, he wouldn't have asked her out. Besides, as a mother, it was normal for her to worry about her daughter's love life. She just wanted to make sure she was okay. She finally decided to speak and asked Chin what he thought of Seolha. Surprised by the sudden question, he didn't understand the reason behind it. Sooyeon explained that they seemed closer lately when they used to barely exchange words. From a mother's perspective, she felt something had changed and wanted to hear his thoughts on her. She admitted that Seolha could be a bit rough, but she wasn't a bad girl, and she was pretty too. So much so that she asked him directly if he'd ever thought about dating her. Kim, who had anticipated the question, responded with another, "Would you like me to date Seolha?" Sooyeon, unsure of what to say, mentioned that if someone like him were Seolha's boyfriend, she'd feel at ease. After all, when people have kids, they want the best for them. It's natural to have those worries. To Kim, her words sounded strange, especially since he was now dating her daughter's mother. But before he could say anything, Sooyeon clarified that she didn't want him to misunderstand. He just laughed and assured her that there was nothing going on between him and Seolha. Though they'd been talking more lately, she was still as prickly as ever. And if he were really interested in Seolha, he wouldn't have asked Sooyeon out again. The only person he wanted as a girlfriend was her. After all, he'd fallen for his boss. Beautiful, kind, and dreamy. When she didn't say anything, Chin began to feel uneasy. He had mustered the courage to confess, but her silence made him doubt himself. Still, just being able to talk to her while enjoying a coffee was enough. To shift the mood, Chin asked what she wanted to do on her day off. He had looked up some options, but wasn't sure which one she'd like best. Of course, for him, anywhere would be perfect, as long as he was with her. Sooyeon, slightly embarrassed, asked if they wouldn't be going there. Kim, curious, asked what she meant. Blushing, she said she was talking about the magical village they had visited last time. So, when they arrived at the magical village, both Sooyeon and Kim were flushed with embarrassment. They continued preparing for the ceremony. Then, as Chin stepped slightly away from her, he commented that she was being incredibly proactive that day. She apologized, saying it wasn't normal for her. Still, Kim kissed her, because no matter how much he thought about it, he truly liked his boss. That's when she suggested they should probably change first. A bit later, Kim was thinking how this was all turning into a big mess. He figured everything would be fine. It wasn't his first mass, but the fact that both of them were so red from embarrassment made it awkward. He wondered if Sooyeon felt just as awkward, but as he watched her more closely, he noticed the bread she was carrying looked incredible. He questioned whether it wasn't difficult for her to carry them around all the time. When she noticed his gaze, she asked if he wanted to take the bread since he had been staring at them for a while. That's why she asked. Although Kim was caught off guard, he knew she had figured him out. Even though Sooyeon thought he would refuse, he nervously ended up accepting them. She reminded him that the last time, even without permission, he had taken them without warning. She asked why he was being so formal this time. Kim, without thinking much, started taking them again. For him, it was the best thing. He could feel the softness of the bread, and the gummy buttons made it stand out even more. He felt completely revitalized just by holding them, as if his faith grew stronger with every second. Although Sooyeon looked flustered, she picked up the chalice, which had begun to glow. This surprised Kim, and the girl asked if he thought she couldn't do it. Kim shook his head at that moment, but before she could say anything else, she gave him a gentle kiss. In Kim's mind, all he could think about was that kiss while still holding the soft bread, and seeing Sooyeon holding the chalice made his head feel foggy. He wondered if this was what people called heaven. At that moment, Sooyeon noticed that holy water hadn't yet flowed from the chalice, which she found quite curious. Kim didn't think it was normal either, but assumed maybe it was because he felt happy in that moment. Then, the girl asked Kim to sit down for a while, saying she'd do everything she could to make him feel better. He didn't understand what she was trying to do. Blushing, he noticed that his boss was now cleaning the chalice. It was the first time he had seen her do something like that, and with so much focus. She was polishing every corner of the object carefully. Watching her act that way fascinated him. It was incredible to see Sooyeon so dedicated. Religious movies he had seen flashed through his mind. The whole situation was so relaxing for him that suddenly, Sooyeon noticed the chalice had started to release holy water. But for Kim, this was a problem, as she quickly tried to collect it. Though a bit embarrassed, Chin apologized for being distracted and said he would bring her a towel to clean up. However, he noticed that even with the holy water in her hands, the girl simply drank it and smiled at Kim, almost teasing him. She explained that she was curious about the taste and now knew it wasn't that great, but even so, if she was next to Kim, she didn't mind at all. Though Kim told her she was acting like a total Bert, she didn't see it that way. She just thought maybe it was something Kim would like. Hearing those words made her feel satisfied, because in truth, it was he who turned out to be the more perverted of the two. Just then, Kim noticed that Sooyeon's corrupt aura had begun to overflow. While this seemed natural to her, he had no idea. Still, he saw that she looked slightly annoyed. That's when Sooyeon gently pushed him back and told him to stay still. Just like she had guided him here, this time she would be the one to read the Bible first. Despite both of them still being very embarrassed, Sooyeon realized that had been the first prayer of the day. She asked Kim if he was feeling okay, and he responded by asking if she wasn't being a bit too picky. She didn't want him joking like that. It wasn't something easy to read, especially with a chalice like hers. Kim didn't know, but for Sooyeon, it was enough that he understood. She wasn't sure if it made him uncomfortable, but Kim said it didn't. It gave him an unexplainable peace. To Sooyeon, that could only mean that he was truly hurt. So, she continued leading the ceremony without pause. For Kim, watching her so determined made him think she was a natural-born leader, and that sparked a new feeling in him. However, he acknowledged that despite her great effort, Sooyeon was a little clumsy. Then she noticed that Kim looked quite distracted and asked if he didn't want to look at her, or if he was about to fetch the holy water. Chin denied it immediately, saying he'd help her with the prayer so they could purify even the deepest sins. Still, he thought maybe he had gone too fast while reciting the prayer and asked if she was okay. Sooyeon nodded. She just wanted to continue with the ceremony. But before that, she wanted to ask Kim for a special favor. Although she was a bit nervous, she acknowledged that it had been a long time since they first met, and that lately they had grown quite close. Maybe he didn't see it the same way, but to her, it was important. Kim, for his part, didn't quite understand what she was trying to say. She explained that she would like him to call her by her name instead of boss, at least just for that day, unless he had forgotten her name. Chin immediately responded, saying her full name without hesitation, because of course he'd remember the name of the person he loved most in the world. Still, he wondered what kind of favor that was, but if that was all, he'd happily do it. At that moment, he said the name Jong-soon. He never imagined she would want to hear her name spoken during a ceremony. Honestly, Kim thought Sooyeon was a Bert, but before continuing, he asked if she was satisfied with the prayers so far. A bit shy, she whispered that she needed a little more. Chin couldn't stand how adorable she looked, so he quickly went to get the holy water to use it with her and complete the consecration. After a while, everything felt rather unexpected. He thought he didn't like that sort of thing, and maybe the day was just different because they'd gone on a real date. He was still surprised that she was the one who suggested going to a magical town. Sooyeon, for her part, admitted that she liked praying with Kim. It was also a way to express how she felt, since it was all about her. But when she heard her name, Sooyeon got embarrassed, which led Kim to ask if she wasn't the one who told him to call her that. She replied that she wanted to forget that moment because she'd been caught up in the mood. Kim didn't understand, so instead of using her name, he chose to call her Non. That only made Sooyeon blush even more and threatened that if he kept doing that, she'd go back home. Even though Kim said that wouldn't happen, she just stared at him. To her, they still had time to continue their prayers, so Chin suggested having 2 more ceremonies. A bit later, Chin was thinking about how they'd spent the whole day with prayers, and now he felt a bit tired. It wasn't easy, especially knowing he'd have to buy something for breakfast the next morning. Especially calling her Nuna was now completely off the table, especially because if Seolha found out, they'd have serious problems. Right at that moment, he heard Amin's voice greeting him. It was a coincidence running into her there, although not too surprising, since it was the only convenience store in the neighborhood. Amin had gone there for something she needed to take care of. When she asked Kim what he was doing there, he didn't know how to answer. However, Amin changed the question and asked if he'd had a good date. Kim immediately asked her what she meant, and she curiously asked if he had hearing problems. Seeing him all dressed up, she thought maybe he had been on a date. Though he tried to play it off, he ended up saying he'd met up with a friend. Amin was doubtful, and Chin, feeling nervous, confirmed it. After all, he'd never been on a date or anything like that. Still, Amin wondered if maybe she was wrong. She thought, what if that friend he mentioned was actually her dear friend Sooyeon? While Amin continued browsing for the items she was going to buy, Chin stood there wondering how she could have possibly known, since he didn't think Sooyeon would have told her anything. He even asked out of nowhere if she had gone out with her or was just being curious. Even so, he claimed that maybe it was all just a misunderstanding from the time Sooyeon came to visit them at the store. That must have been it. Then Kim continued, saying how could he be going out with Sooyeon if that day neither of them had been working at the shop and she was probably just resting. That made Amin think a little, though she still insisted on knowing if he was telling the truth. She wouldn't take her eyes off him. Chin, seeing her expression, thought it seemed like she already knew everything, but he didn't understand how. Had she seen them leaving the magical town? His best move was to stop hiding it, so he decided to say something to Amin. He wanted to know how she had found out about his relationship with Sooyeon, hoping she would clarify things. Amin looked at him seriously, though she couldn't help but let out a small laugh. She asked Chin why he had such a serious expression. Did he think she was going to judge him? After all, she and Soon had known each other for a long time. Besides, it wasn't really her business who her friend dated or what she did in her personal life. Still, she was curious if they really had that kind of relationship. She'd only joked about it because the last time she visited the store, they seemed pretty close. But now, seeing Sooyeon acting so innocent and finding out she was actually dating someone from her job, Amin thought maybe she could learn a thing or two from her. Chin, in his mind, knew he was already caught, like being caught red-handed. And just then, Amin wanted to know how he managed to survive around Seolha, who seemed like some kind of bodyguard for Sooyeon. She even asked if Seolha knew everything or how he managed to get around her. Nervously, Chin said no, that Seolha didn't know anything, but for now he'd keep it a secret. Even so, Amin kept thinking, and Chin felt the atmosphere grow tense, like something serious was about to happen. He realized that continuing to hide things was getting harder, and that if it kept going like this, it was only a matter of time before Seolha found out. For Amin, on the other hand, it was all very exciting. It felt like something out of a romance novel. Two people in love despite the obstacles around them. She thought it was fantastic, but when she asked if he had ever tried it, Chin didn't understand what she meant. Amin explained she was referring to those times when they were both bored in the store with no customers. Had they ever had something like a mass together? She asked what it was like, if it was exciting, admitting she was a bit jealous. She wondered why he had suddenly gone so quiet. The boy didn't say anything, just stayed silent and blushed. For Amin, seeing him like that just proved he was a terrible liar. She also recalled how Sooyeon had scolded her for going out with guys, and now it turns out she herself was dating her coworker. She found it amusing but also understandable. Then she realized she'd kept Chin there too long and apologized, saying she had to go. Chin, however, asked her to wait a bit longer. He didn't want her to worry and assured her that he wasn't afraid she'd tell Seolha. But he asked if she was really okay with everything, something she didn't quite understand. Kim was referring to her relationship with Sooyeon, which seemed to catch Amin's attention. She admitted it would be a lie to say she didn't care, since they had known each other for almost 20 years. But precisely because she had known her for so long, she trusted her. If Soon had reached a point where she could give her heart to someone and even chose to hide it from her own daughter, then that person must be someone good. She asked Kim if he didn't think the same, because at the beginning, her Sooyeon wasn't like this, and told him not to worry about it. Chin quickly asked Amin to wait a little more as he wanted to understand what she meant by that last part. For Amin, it wasn't a big deal, not something that needed overthinking, but Chin disagreed. He wanted to know more about Sooyeon, even wanted to better understand the woman he called his boss. For Amin, it didn't seem all that important and didn't see why she should say anything. But Kim insisted, asking if it wasn't important, then why not just tell him? Amin found him pretty stubborn, but she didn't mind. She said fine, she would tell him, since she liked persistent men, although in exchange, she wanted him to do her a favor, hoping he'd understand what she meant.